John sat beside his grandmother on the balcony terrace, overlooking West Bay Road and the lower Hampshire Valley. The fields that had once been lush and green in the spring were now dry and scorched, burned into a dull brown by the relentless summer heat. The land looked less like New England and more like a desert. A hawk screamed overhead, circling slowly in the blazing sun. John watched it for a moment, thinking how it looked just as exhausted as he felt. The heat pressed down on everything, on the valley, on the buildings, on them. Sitting beside his grandmother, he noticed how much the sunlight revealed. The lines in her face, the weathering of her skin time made visible. John lived in Goshen with his parents. He had just finished school for the summer and was now interning as a columnist for Gemini Inc. The previous 2 summers, he had worked as a lifeguard at the Highland Reservoir. The pay was decent, but it was never something he saw himself doing long term. He was heading into his senior year now, and the future still felt uncertain. By his 2nd semester of junior year, John had already switched majors multiple times. Environmental science had been one of them. Then, something else. Then, something else again. Then, eventually, after what felt like the 100th visit to his guidance counselor, she had laughed softly when he walked into her office. "You switch majors faster than a politician switches sides at a fundraiser," she said. "I don't know what I want," John replied. "Well, let's start simple," she said. "What do you like?" No one had ever asked him that so directly before. "I like reading," he said slowly, "and writing." He told her about the article he wrote back in high school about Governor Charlie Baker's push for opioid rehabilitation. It hadn't made the front page, but he had received a check in the mail for $250. That had meant something. She smiled. "I think I know exactly what you need." From that day on, John stuck with journalism. For the first time, something felt right. Today, however, he wasn't thinking about college. He had come to visit his grandmother Patricia at the Applewood Retirement Community. She had lived there alone for nearly 20 years, ever since John's father moved away and after his grandfather, Byron Hotz, died. But today's visit wasn't routine. John had brought a notebook, a pencil, and an old tape recorder he had dug out from the garage. He pressed the record button. "So, how did you and Granddad first come to Northampton?" His grandmother leaned back slightly, thinking. "Well, in 1968, she began. It was the old way women used to travel following their husbands." She gave a small, dry laugh. "We came with nothing, just some loose change, a willingness to work, and dreams. Big ones. We thought we'd open a restaurant." She shook her head. "But neither of us could cook like Auguste Escoffier, and we didn't know the first thing about running a business." They had to settle. Northampton, she explained, was vibrant back then but worn. Beautiful in structure but hollow in places. Buildings with boarded-up upper floors. Entire communities pushed into certain areas because of prejudice. And the streets. They were always full of protesters, she said. Vietnam, civil rights, the police and the people were always at each other. She paused. Then her voice lowered. And then there was the hospital. Most people didn't call it by its real name. They called it the asylum. The cuckoo's nest. The loony bin. Before Byron started working there, she hadn't known much, only that it was a terrible place. A place where things happened that people didn't talk about. John remembered how she used to describe it when he was young. A place where men in white coats take you when you're not feeling well. But the kids at school had described it differently. A gray truck. No windows. Men who came and took you away. Rooms with soft white walls. Letters written in crayons instead of pens. A place you didn't come back from. She reached for her tea, now cold, fruit flies hovering around it. "It's been nearly 50 years, she said, "and I ain't senile yet." She looked directly at John. "Everything your grandfather told me. It was true." Then she leaned back. "Make yourself comfortable," she said quietly, "because this story is long and it's disturbing." The 23rd of June, 1968. The hospital stood on Hospital Hill, looming over Northampton like a monument to something forgotten. Built in 1858, under the Kirkbride model, it was meant to be a place of healing. Instead, it had become something else. Stone walls stretched outward like arms, enclosing the grounds. The main building was massive, cold, and unwelcoming. Inside, conditions were worse. Underfunded, understaffed, outdated. Patients were sedated, controlled, forgotten. Just keep them quiet was the unspoken rule. Byron Hotz walked beside Captain Eric Jacquet, head of night security. The stairwell walls were chipped, paint peeled away in long strips. At the top, a rusted steel door waited. Inside, the corridor stretched endlessly. Gray doors lined both sides, each one locked from the outside. Inside each room, almost nothing. A mattress, a blanket, and the sounds. Screaming, crying, laughing. Not normal laughter, but something broken. Byron looked into each room as they passed. Patients stared back. Some pressed their faces to the glass. Others lay motionless. "This is where people come to be forgotten," Jack said. And that was only the beginning. From there, everything slowly begins to change. A patient dies, August Haskell, but something about his death isn't right. Scratch marks, signs of struggle. Then, the noises start. Clicking sounds in the hallway. Things moving when no one is there. Voices. Byron tries to ignore it. Everyone does. That's how you survive a place like that. Until one night, he hears a voice coming from a drain. His dead sister, laughing. Then dozens of voices, all speaking at once. "Our name is Legion, for we are many." After that, things spiral. Rats everywhere, watching him. Shadows moving in the dark. A presence in the hallway. Something tall, black, featureless, not human. "It's longer than a lifetime in here," it says. "It's longer than an eternity." Byron breaks. Completely. "They locked him up in that same place," Patricia said quietly. John didn't speak. "He wasn't sick," she added. "That place made him sick." She looked out over the valley again. "It feeds on people," she said. "Places like that, they grow things, dark things." John finally asked, "What was it?" She didn't answer right away. Then, softly, "Something that doesn't belong here." Byron died not long after. Officially, it was an accident. But it wasn't. The hospital closed in 1993. Abandoned. Left to rot. Patricia turned back to him. "Still thinking about writing your story?" John nodded. She sighed. "You can't stop people from telling stories," she said. "But listen to me." Her voice dropped. "Do not go up Route 66. Do not go to Hospital Hill." She looked him in the eyes. "Leave it where it is." A long pause. "Some things should stay buried." To tell this story properly, I have to go back much further, all the way to the beginning. The year was 1841. A self-made paper mill owner named Alva Crocker learned of plans for the Western Railroad. He quickly began lobbying for a northern route, one that would connect Boston to Troy, New York. To Crocker, it wasn't just about transportation. It was opportunity, profit, expansion. He argued that the existing railroad, which ran through Worcester and Springfield, left northern towns like Cummington, Cheshire, and Stamford isolated, cut off from growth and trade. But there was a problem, a massive one. To complete his vision, the railroad would have to pass through the Deerfield Valley and straight through the heart of Hoosac Mountain. One late spring day in 1845, Crocker stood with his colleague, Laomi Baldwin, in a field of pale, dying grass. They overlooked the valley below. The land stretched out in muted tones, gray weeds, low hills, and a sky that looked heavy and blind. Baldwin gestured ahead. "Why, sir, it seems as if Providence itself has marked this path for us, east to west." Crocker stared at the mountain. "Perhaps," he said quietly, "but it's a pity that Providence chose to drive its finger straight through Hoosac Mountain." October 12th, 1932. The air was cold, sharp as stone under moonlight. The Great Depression had taken hold. The world was unraveling. Jobs vanished. Families fled their homes. Entire towns withered. In the northwest corner of the Deerfield Valley sat the town of North Adams, a quiet, struggling place. The sign at the edge of town said it all. No work. Transients turn back now. That was where my grandparents lived, Paul and Joan Harrington. They owned a small bed and breakfast on Bradford Road. Business was slow, life was quiet. That is, until the storm came. That evening, they sat at the dining table with their friend, Peter Caldwell, a large, cheerful man with a booming laugh. They had just finished dinner. Thunder rolled in the distance. The sky darkened. Then, bang, a violent pounding at the front door. Paul stood up. Who in the name of Sam Houston is out in this weather? He opened the door. A man and a woman stood there, soaked, shaking, desperate. "Please," the woman cried, "our children are missing." They were the Noonan family. New to town. 2 boys, Stanley and Bobby, gone. Last seen heading toward an old ravine, near an abandoned structure. As soon as Paul heard where they went, everything changed. He went still. "The mountain," Joan whispered. The phones were dead. The storm had taken them. There would be no help. So Paul made a decision. They would go themselves. He loaded his shotgun. Peter grabbed his revolver. Joan handed him a Bible and something else. A small vial, mountain ash, just in case, she said softly. They drove into the storm. The sky burned with lightning. The road shook beneath the truck. And in the silence between thunder, Paul finally spoke. "There's something you should know about this place." He told Mr. Noonan about the tunnel, about the mountain, about the stories. A place the locals called the Pit. "Bad things happened during its construction," Paul said. "Men died, a lot of them." Noonan shook his head. "You're talking about ghosts?" Paul didn't answer right away. "I don't believe in fairy tales," he said. "But I do believe some places are touched by evil." They reached the base of the mountain. The rain came down hard, now sharp, stinging. They continued on foot, through mud, through trees stripped bare, until finally they saw it. The entrance, a dark archway carved into the mountain. Cold air drifted out from within, and lying on the tracks was a dead animal, mutilated, not eaten, just destroyed. "This is the place," Paul said. Noonan stared into the darkness. "My boys are in there." And without waiting, he stepped inside. The tunnel swallowed them. The light behind them faded, then vanished. Inside, it was cold, wet, silent, except for dripping water echoing endlessly. Noonan began shouting, "Stanley! Bobby!" No answer. Then, they found something. A child's cap. Bobby's. Noonan snapped. He ran. "Bobby!" "Noonan!" "Wait!" Paul shouted, but he didn't stop. Paul told Peter to go back, get help. Then he followed. Deeper. The tunnel twisted, split, darkened. The air grew heavier, and then the sounds began. Not words. Something else. Whispers. Movement. Something just out of sight. Paul heard Noonan ahead. Then, a scream. Not human. Something worse. And then, Noonan screamed. Once. And then, nothing. Silence. Paul stood frozen. He knew that was the last time anyone would ever see Matthew Noonan. Then he saw them. Figures. Pale. Broken. Shadows of men. Miners. They moved toward him. Slowly. Paul pulled out the Bible. He began to pray, his voice shaking. They kept coming. So he ran. Behind him, footsteps. Many. Fast. He turned and fired into the darkness. The blast echoed like thunder. Still they came. Then he remembered. The vial. He poured the mountain ash onto the tracks. It glowed faintly. The figures stopped. They could not cross. Paul raised the crucifix, screaming the Lord's Prayer. The tunnel roared. Voices screamed, howled, and then they were gone. Silence. Paul stood there, shaking, alive. "My Joe," he whispered. "Thank you." He never went back. Years later, he moved away. He never spoke of that night again. But the story, remained. And sometimes, people still go there, stand at the mouth of the tunnel, listen. Some say, if you wait long enough, you can hear it, a voice, far below, crying, calling you in, and then laughter, because something still lives there, deep in the mountain, waiting. So if you ever find yourself in North Adams, sit by the fire, listen to the old stories about the miners, about the screams, and about the place they still call the Bloody Pit. A spectral woman stood on a mossy stone above a quiet brook, socks and sandals damp with morning dew. The red of dawn shimmered faintly along the length of her silver flute as she played. I had lost something important. Why was I here? Her melody wrapped around me, soft and sweet, like warm honey in my ears. My legs ached, my head pounded. I needed rest. Her oily black hair spilled from beneath a crooked straw hat, shadowing her eyes. Her skin was porcelain, her hands delicate. A long silken robe flowed around her, embroidered with nightshade. "What brings you to these forests?" she asked, her voice smooth as water. "I am on a journey," I said, "an important one." She smiled faintly. "You should tell me about it." "I cannot." I wanted to explain, but something held my tongue. "Why?" "Father." She laughed softly and drifted down from her perch, light as a falling seed. Though she stood taller than me, I felt strangely calm in her presence, warmed by a faint glow that pulsed from her body. "You can tell me," she said gently. "I keep secrets well. How has your journey been?" "The forests are peaceful," I replied. "I like them." "I'm glad." Her cool hand brushed my cheek, mist curling from her skin. "What is your name?" "What is yours?" I stepped back. Her hand fell away. Her flute dissolved into fog. Father's rule echoed in my mind. Never give your name first. "I'm Lulu," she said. "I live in a palace at the end of the brook. It's very beautiful." "My name is Kode," I answered after a moment. "I live in a temple." "A temple?" She drifted closer, almost without moving. The warmth around her grew stronger. "There are none nearby. Why are you so far from home?" My thoughts scattered. Mist thickened around us. Something felt wrong. I cannot say. I should go. I didn't want to leave, but I had to. She moved again, gliding behind me, an arm slipping around my back. "Stay," she whispered. "Come have tea with me, Kode. My husband returns from battle today." Up close, her lips looked wrong, too red, uneven, as if stained, bleeding, danger. Fear struck me like lightning. I stumbled away. I must go. Another time. Her body dissolved into mist. I backed away, watching it swirl over leaves and branches. My foot caught. I fell hard onto my back. The mist gathered again, reforming her shape. "I don't want you to leave," Lilu said softly, lifting her hat. It dissolved into pale fog. Her eyes were gone. In their place were hollow voids, darker than night, with tiny flickers of fire deep inside. Red streaks ran from her lips into those empty sockets like tears. "I've been alone," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Surely you won't leave me, Code?" I screamed and ran. The forest blurred past me, twigs snapping, leaves crunching, cold mist filled my lungs like ice. Strange blue flames hovered among the branches, watching me without eyes. Her laughter echoed, everywhere, nowhere. Fear wrapped around me, tightening, choking. My heart pounded wildly. Father's teachings flickered in my mind, but I couldn't grasp them. Pain ripped across my back, sharp, burning. Something warm ran down my spine. Blood. "Run." Through the trees, I saw stone steps rising toward wooden archways bound with rope and chimes. A shrine. Safety. I sprinted toward it, her presence close behind me, cold breath at my neck, claws tearing at my robe. I threw myself onto the altar, grabbing the first object I found, a string of dark pearls. "Begone!" I shouted, turning to face her. She formed again in the mist. "I am lonely," she said. "It hurts me to harm you." I threw the necklace. It passed through her harmlessly. She reached for me, her head tilting unnaturally. Her breath froze me in place. Her mouth stretched open too wide, endless darkness inside. "Let us have tea, Kode," she rasped. Father's voice echoed in my mind. Again. I grabbed a nearby vase and smashed it on the ground. Ash and powder burst into the air. She screamed. Magenta flames engulfed her form. Her cries tore through the forest as she burned away into nothing. "Why, Kode?" Her voice echoed. Silence followed. My legs gave out. I collapsed, shaking, clutching myself as my heart hammered. Alone, afraid. Then crack. A twig snapped somewhere in the forest. I froze. A voice called out, casual and young. "Hello? Anyone there?" I backed away silently, every step careful. "Come on," the voice said. "I can't be worse than whatever made you scream like that." A boy stepped through the ferns, calm expression, sword at his side. He looked more bored than afraid. "You've got a pretty loud scream," he said with a crooked grin. I stared at him. "Who are you?" He rested the sword across his shoulder. "Call me Monkey. I'm on the Sui journey. You too, right?" "Yes," I said quietly. For the first time since the forest closed in around me, the fear loosened its grip just a little.